Hi, this is Naroki5. I am going to be doing this until I die or I find something better to do. So please help me achieve this personal and, I think, noble objective by contributing to my Patreon or Subscribestar. Link is down below. Every little bit helps. Thank you very much.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Red Pill Nation Hangout number 359. This is yet another Canada special. Yet, because whatever seems to be going on with Justin Trudeau, he just cannot, or in a lot of cases, the New Democrat Party, Trudeau just can't seem to help himself, and he just seems to be piling on the stupidity like a drunken sailor in offshore after being on the boat for 6 months. I am absolutely gobsmacked that I'm having to do yet another Canada episode like this soon after having done the last one. I mean, we did a Canada episode like less than a month ago. That tells you about how bad things are going on up here. Now, Rearson is having technical issues. Of course, he's having technical issues. So, but we all know what it is, really. He got the aliens provided him with the new GIMP suit, and he just had to try it on. It had special straps this time, so he has to unstrap himself, and has to hustle all the aliens into the closet before he can actually step out and realistically expect to join us. Oh, okay. Yeah, Henrik, I'm in the middle of the show. I just started the show right now, so I can't. I won't be able to play your recording until after the show's over, or I may have to go to my phone, one or the other. But yeah, I can't play it right at the moment. Also with me tonight is V. So V, since you're the only other person on here with me right now, you might as well introduce yourself.
Yes, I am V, host of the Red Pill Hardcore Radio Show. You just caught me as I was coming out of the shower, so great timing, I guess. And then, yeah. There's the other guy. Go ahead.
I can hear you fine now, Steve. Say something. Rearson, say something.
It's because I'm on my fucking phone. This is not how it's supposed to work. I'll hold off on possibly giving you the laptop until I figure this fucking shit out.
Well, I'm more than happy to settle for financial compensation at the same time. But anyway, yeah, Henry can't join us. He has a girlfriend he has to please. So, yep. But for right now, Rearson, you can introduce yourself now that you're on.
Finally. I'm Rearson. I'm feeling a little bit disturbed right now. Oh, Jesus, Mary Joseph, what a pain in the ass this thing is. Anyway, I'm here.
The aliens and the strap-ons will do that, Rearson.
Fuck you. And I mean that in the worst way possible. Maybe that's what's causing the problem with the fucking webcam. Or maybe. I don't know. Anyway, I'm trying to figure out my shit, so
we're all trying to figure it out. Hold on a second. I'm just sending a message to Henrik.
Well, I'm glad that he's got a girlfriend. I really am, honestly.
There we go. You're welcome, Henrik.
All right.
All right, so welcome to the Canada episode. Before I get into it all, I am at Patreon as Naroki5. No, well, I mean, I am on YouTube. I'm actually up to double digits in subs on YouTube. I don't know how I managed to get 10 subs, but I did somehow manage to get 10 subs. Now I'm up to 10 whole subs on YouTube. That's without even lifting one finger to appropriate it there. Odyssey, Rumble, BitChute, Brighteon, MGTOW TV, Facebook, Minds, Gab, MeWe, Getter, and TLB Talks are the other places that you can currently find me. Just remember, I may be here, but I'm not all there. And we have one standard on this show. And Rierson, what is that standard?
How about fucking none?
Yeah, we have one standard, no standard. Don't know whether it's going to stay, whether we're actually going, when I get to that level, I'm actually going to be commercially viable or not. But I'm proud to have absolutely no standards on this show whatsoever. That way we can talk about V and his onesie and Rierson and his space aliens and GIMP suit and not have to worry about demonetization. All right. For those of you who don't know the topics tonight, these are the topics. And I'm going to give a little bit of a commentary before we actually get into the topics. Topic number 1: Groups wins lawsuit against Alberta around Dena Hinshaw's directive around the COVID shutdowns. That's going to be an interesting one right out the gate. 2: Justin Trudeau attempting to rig elections by making ballot harvesting easier. Actually, no, actually, what am I thinking? No, that's number 3. Where the hell? Oh, that's right. Pearson, could you post up the revised list that I sent you? Number 2 is Justin Trudeau getting sued for freezing bank accounts during Freedom Convoy. Topic number 3 is Justin Trudeau attempting to rig elections by making ballot harvesting easier. Topic number 4, EU gives up against the farmers. Canada also joins the farmers' protest. Topic number 4, Bill C-372, NDP and Member of Parliament Charles Angus wants to jail people who promote oil and gas. Oh, that one is nasty. Like, that one is really nasty. And topic number 6, Sinister Twist involved in MAID's program in Canada. Oh, yeah, that one also has some really dark overtones to it. There's a lot of really, really dark stuff involved tonight in the show. From 1,000 feet up, this whole thing looks like it is this whole thing looks like, for all intents and purposes, it looks like it is Justin Trudeau attempting really, really desperately to try and, well, for lack of a better term, doing everything he humanly possible to hold on to power. And it also looks like, unlike his dad, Pierre, who had the good sense to understand that his time was up, that Justin appears to want to hang on to power for as long as humanly possible. Now, the bird's eye view looking at it is that Pierre Poilievre is got almost as much support now as the NDP and the Liberals put together. Now, if you go on Twitter, maybe if you guys don't go on Twitter, but when I go on Twitter, what I keep seeing over and over and over again are Trudeau's trained seals continuously saying, and also commenting about how Trudeau is going to win the next election and Trudeau is doing a great job. And when you answer back on, and of course you have various trained seals in the media. Charles Adler seems to be, and here's the part, Charles Adler, and I know Rearson remembers Charles Adler. Charles Adler was a guy who was noted for actually having a lot of integrity at one time, and also by and large being a conservative. Ever since Trudeau laid out that bribe, though, I mean, Adler has become nothing more than a propagandist, which is what you're basically seeing with a lot of the media. We had, hold on a second. We had Elon Musk literally compare and I mean, I have a hard time disagreeing with him. Elon Musk called the Toronto Star Pravda, and when you see some of the stuff that I see on Twitter around the Toronto Star and what they publish, it's like they're not even trying to tell the truth anymore. So the fact that we've had to do 2 Canada specials in the past month tells you something about what's going on. And the 1,000-foot view is what you're seeing is a narcissist, a globalist, a real poor excuse for a human being who got to a position of power that he likely didn't deserve. It's one definitely. There's enough stuff in the background with Trudeau that, I mean, somebody actually posted up at one point all of the mistakes that Trudeau did, and I responded to somebody on Twitter about it, and I posted them all up, and it took 5 posts to cover them all. They were all just single sentence issues. Didn't go into any depth on all of them. The whole issue is that you're seeing a guy who not only believes that he should be the leader, that he should stay the leader, and understands that if he gets voted out as prime minister, that his days are probably numbered. Because, I mean, while, and Rusin probably remembers this, Brian Mulroney actually had a lower approval rating when he left office. Mulroney at least had the brains to understand that his goose was cooked. And make no mistake about it, at the time, Brian Mulroney's goose back in 93, Brian Mulroney's goose was cooked. Somehow Trudeau has been able to hang on to about, and I'm going to have to say this is probably because of the media and academia and all of the fundamental leftists. He's pandered to a very specific group, and that has enabled him to get around that 15 to 20% support. Unfortunately, fortunately for all of us, this is where things kind of backfire now, because the NDP is if he teamed up with the NDP, he might actually have a chance. I don't want to give him any ideas, but the NDP is actually bleeding support away from him at the moment, and I can only view that as a bit of a good thing. Now, if either Rearson or V wants to open up on this Canada issue before we get into the topics, I will yield my time, and one of you two guys can say something before we get started.
I'm not going to, just because I've been fucking around and finally got everything working the way that it should. So, okay, so basically, okay. First off, I'm going to assume that V, you're not going to say anything at all.
What makes you say that?
Good God.
Ober on the Don Honkeros. Okay.
Okay. Sure. Henrik, if you're going to be fucking typing, just fucking jump in, for fuck's sakes. Just saying. Anyway.
You too, Dave.
Gotta love having two topics, two subjects going on at the same time within chat, and we're recording it. All that I can say with what's going on right now with the NDP, and again, by your own admission, Rookie, where you would have voted NDP.
Traditionally, I did vote NDP up until 2 elections ago. I voted NDP all the time.
Yeah, the fact that the NDP has swayed so far from its socialist union, working man protection ideology. I mean, it's gone. It has absolutely been destroyed and shredded. I mean, again, India has an arrest warrant for Jagmeet Singh. And we're talking the third largest economy, the most populous country on the planet.
They're still behind China for another 10 years or so, but continue.
Yeah. Well, in terms of population or economy?
In terms of population, they're about 200 million behind. They're expected to make that up before 2040, though, at current rates.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not like India doesn't encourage condom use either, but we'll leave that one alone. So they're gonna be fucking their way into having more kids, more than the Chinese can't get back at this point. But anyway, Singh is a ticking time bomb, and I've heard rumors, well, too, is that he's holding out. You know why he's holding out? For his fucking federal pension. So I'll just leave it at that for now. So.
Okay, I stand corrected. It is 8 million, so it's going to be not by 2040. It's going to be by 2030.
8 million? It won't take that long for them to pop out that many kids.
We keep in mind, India is the country that invented tantric sex, by the way. That tells you what the Indians are like sexually.
Well, I got a friend who's a Sikh, and he's apparently enough of a not sexual monster, but he seems to attract enough women. But he's also tall, dark, and handsome. So what the fuck women want beats the shit out of me, because I sure as hell don't.
Hey, anyway, India gave us pre-array. Remember that.
Yeah, and Indian women, it's either a feast or a famine, and most of the time it's a famine.
Yeah, nothing like talking about issues of Canada by talking about everybody's favorite Indian porn star before we actually get into the topics.
Oh yeah, and she came. Well, no, there's that other one that came out of Brampton, Ontario.
Oh my God, what is her name?
Oh, Sunny Leon.
Sunny Leon, yeah.
So, as I've said before, that's the closest I've been to a regular mainstream porn star. But we'll leave that alone for another topic or another time to discuss. Anyway, let's get into it, man. Just like porn stars, or male porn stars get into the females.
Yeah, all right. So for the first topic for tonight, and here, let me just timestamp this baby here. All right. Oh, wow. This one. Right off the bat. This was the reason why this one is number one is because it was the one that where I hit, and I'm posting pre-array in the chat right now, so you guys can all have a look. Is that this was the one that finally put me over the top, where I had realized I had to break this up into 2 episodes again. Dena Hinshaw, the I don't know whether she's the minister or she's director of Alberta Health. At one point during the COVID lockdowns, she actually did a run on social media where people were commenting about how literally unhinged she was. When I saw the when I saw the actual footage that Viva Fry used on her, and it was just, and Viva Fry was like saying, this woman that looks completely insane. And it was like we were talking about a woman who like literally, like, she would say something and then she would put her mask on and then she would take that hand lotion and lotion her hands, and she did it like obsessively, like 4 or 5 times during the thing. And it was like, and it got pointed, and it was pointed out by Viva Fry in that video that this was the woman who was the person that Jason Kenney was getting her advice from, which explains the which explains the some of the things that Kenney did during his premiership, which actually, you got to understand, Hinshaw was likely the one that caused. Hinshaw is ultimately, I mean, Hinshaw is the one who caused Jason Kenney a run at the prime ministership. Kenney mishandled the COVID situation. He didn't have enough of a grasp of what Albertans were doing. And I mean, what literally happened with the shutdown, and Kenney, at the time when he issued these shutdowns in 2021, openly said that he was doing this under great hesitation. And what was literally happening is that CBC, CTV, and to a lesser extent Global all went on a huge press campaign, which we actually covered at the time that it was taking place. And the whole thing with that is that, I mean, there was including, and I actually posted this up. It might even still be up in the chat, although we'd have to probably go back a year and a half to find it. CTV did a poll where they asked people in Alberta whether they were in favor of the shutdowns, and it came out 80-20 against the shutdowns. And what the media spit it out in regards to that was that Albertans were quote unquote split on shutdowns. They didn't mention that 80% of Albertans were against the shutdowns. They just said it was split, which when you look at that just on its face, most of us would look at that and go, well, that's 50-50, right? No, it wasn't 50-50. It was 80-20. Now, technically, the press didn't lie, but they lied. Hinshaw happily and willingly took that information, went to Kenney, and she didn't lie to Kenney, but it's fairly clear that she misrepresented the facts to him. And with Hinshaw being the number one, being the person on the spot in the province of Alberta for doing this, Kenney didn't think about asking anybody else. So Kenney reluctantly put the quarantine in place, even though it was completely unnecessary. Now, fortunately for me, my employer didn't care. Pearson was a little bit better off too, because he could work it from home. A lot of people lost their jobs. There was even talk of the prime minister at one point was even speaking about speaking a lot about
Henrik, sorry, Kelso, please just stop. Just absolutely just fucking stop.
I lost my total train of thought about that. I lost my total train of thought. Okay, so yeah, so he Kenny went with what Hinshaw was telling her. Now, had the convoy not come along, and by the way, we will be covering the convoy tonight. In fact, it's the next topic. The whole thing with that is that had the convoy not come along and given Jason Kenney the pretense that he needed to remove the restrictions, the restrictions probably would have stayed up for a very long time. And I'm also going to point something out here. Had Rachel Notley been the one in charge, as in the NDP, for the previous premier, she was a New Democrat, which is rare for Alberta to elect a New Democrat, but that's exactly what happened. We would have been under the same crippling restrictions that Quebec would have been under. Now, I personally thought that Rachel Notley got a bit of a raw deal, but now that I'm looking back on it, I'm starting to realize that, maybe Rachel Notley was taking her marching orders from Jagmeet Singh and not actually representing the people of Alberta, which is where both Rusin and I live. So this whole lawsuit was quite justified in my in my opinion. Not only was it quite justified in my opinion, but also the net result of this situation was that as soon as Daniel Smith became head of the Conservative Party in Alberta, Dena Hinshaw was let go. Daniel Smith chose quite wisely not to fight this lawsuit, and we now know what happened, at least in the province of Alberta. A lot of this has to be laid at the feet of Rachel Notley, because Jason Kenney forgot to switch out a lot of the NDP appointees in Alberta when he became premier, and those people basically undermined him later on down the road. And I can't say I'm entirely surprised. Like I said, Dena Hinshaw did a bit of a small run on social media for some of the unhinged stuff that she got caught saying, and people were actually somewhat amazed that people were sort of amazed that a place like Alberta would have someone like that in place, and a lot of people seem to forget that. Jason Kenney took over the premiership from Rachel Notley when Rachel Notley is NDP, and it's kind of disappointing, really, because Rachel Notley is she's my home riding. Her constituency office is like 4 blocks from where I live, and at one point her constituency office was 1.5 blocks. I've actually passed Rachel Notley on the street a couple of times, and I was up until a couple of elections ago. The NDP usually got my vote, but that is not the case anymore. And I won't even get into the provincial election, how close that was. So I'm going to yield to V. So V, you're up.
Yeah, well, I don't know what I could add. I don't see any topics here, and it's just Canadian. So, I don't know. Pass it on. I think I might be able to say something about you, but no, sorry.
Alrighty. Hinshaw was the chief health officer, I think is the best way to describe her title at the time. And the way that Viva Frei described the whole thing is that she gave options to the politicians, and the politicians decided on, how did he put it, what was most politically expedient. So in other words, they were looking for the easiest, fastest way to deal with this. I don't think it was anything more than about 3. Actually, I don't remember how long it was, but there was footage of Jason Kenney, then Alberta Premier, so I would say Governor, on a patio, unmasked, with then the Alberta Health Minister. I can't remember his fucking name, but I think he got back in again, but his chances of moving up the ranks were thoroughly squashed. And there were 2 other people, and Jason Kenney, caught with his pants down, basically just said, yeah, I know we're not really supposed to do that, and there's a moment of indiscretion, kind of going, bullshit. Well, at the point, I would be like, well, to quote Terrence Popp, bullshit. So he was done. The way that he mismanaged, mishandled, however you want to call it, the whole COOF, C-1984, as I like to phrase it. He ended up tripping over himself. It was honestly rather pathetic at that point in time. And I'm glad that I mean, nothing good. Well, actually, no, I take that back. A lot of good came out of this whole ordeal, but not for the likes of Kenny. I don't entirely trust Danielle Smith, but I trust her. I trust her more than I don't trust. I don't know which is worse. I don't know if I trust Google over Apple or Apple over Google or Microsoft to throw into the mix. I don't know, but it's. And I know the clip that that Naroki is talking about is Hinshaw was talking about something. She gave the mic over to not Aria Grant, but who is that MLA out of Red Deer? Anyway, she's now the current health minister, education minister. I can't remember what the fuck she is. I don't trust her either. And then the reporter's question was for Hinshaw, so they switched. Hinshaw took the mask off, put the rubbing alcohol on her hands, And I mean, the woman has no. She reminds me, now that I'm thinking about it, of a young Hillary Clinton in university. About the time that she's going to be involved in Watergate and the whole freaking bit, as well as oh shit, who the fuck is that? That radical intellectual.
Noam Chomsky?
No, Saul Alinsky?
Saul Alinsky, yeah. Rules for Radicals.
Yep. Yeah. She looks about as appealing. Take her back about 30 years, maybe 40. She reminds me of what Hillary Clinton looked like at that point in time. Just an uncharismatic, easily overlookable individual. And Hinshaw has a natural deadpan ability to address people. No charisma. She's the perfect bureaucrat who would probably throw her weight around for being female and to get promoted, whatever the case may be. So I can't wait to see this woman get destroyed at all. And this ties into the next topic, which is what's happening against Trudeau at this point as well, too. So the way that I'm seeing it is that the COVID narrative, C-1984, whatever you want to call it, the COOF narrative, is starting to fall apart. And how can I say this? The problem with being intelligent, having some critical thinking skills, and seeing what's going on for what it is, it takes typically anywhere from 2 to 5 to 10 years for the system to fall apart as it is. And that's what I'm seeing now. As I said, I trust Danielle Smith more than I trust the likes of Jason Kenney or whomever else. But I still have reservations about the woman as well too. So damned if I do, damned if I don't. I don't know how else to say it. So I can't wait to see this one fall apart on the part of the oppressors. And I'm going to leave it at that for now. So let's move on.
Yeah, Dena Hinshaw. Dena Hinshaw is probably never going to be getting a. She's never going to be getting. I don't think she's ever going to be getting a high political position ever. At least not in Alberta. She might get one in another province, but she's done here. Daniel Smith has been doing a lot of the right thing lately, and yeah, I'm not completely sold on Daniel Smith, but she's a damn sight better than Jason Kenney. Mostly because I think she appears to be going through this in a methodical way, and she's getting rid. I mean, she got rid of Dena Hinshaw almost right away, which is probably a damn good thing that she did. But with that, let's get on to. Those are very nice, aren't they, Rearson? Let's get on with the next topic here, which is another lawsuit.
Like I said, as I typed in there, I'm not sure what I see first, the nose or those tits, those fake tits. Just saying.
Oh, that a real fake. It doesn't matter to me, man.
It's not your health you have to worry about. She's got her immune system to fight the implants, so that's her issue, not yours.
Yeah, that's her issue. That's her issue. We're talking about Sunny Leo, or are we talking about Sunny or Priya here?
Priya.
Are we talking? Oh, Priya. Oh, I don't care. I'll stick my face in there anyway.
You pig. That's why we're friends.
She's in her. I think she's in her late 30s or early 40s now. I'd still stick my face in there anyway. Yep, like I said, recommendation. One standard, no standard at all.
And
Guys,
yes, ladies and gentlemen, we have.
And I can't find my charger, so I gotta go.
Oh fuck! All right, B. Have a good night.
All right. Oh my God.
If you come back, great. We'll say
Okay.
no. Just like Noroki won't say no to Priya. Anyway.
No, I won't say no to Priya. Even though I'm a MGTOW, hell, I won't say no to Priya. I would never marry her. I'd never have her move in with me. Apparently,
Fine.
she's got a kid. I'd never be the stepdad. But it's like
Fine, fucking forget. Pump and dump. There we go.
pump and dump. Yep, exactly. So let's get into lawsuit number 2. Justin Trudeau getting sued for what that. Justin Trudeau is getting sued, and Chrystia Freeland, and the and the Bank of Canada, and the Royal Bank, and the Liberal Party, and the Ottawa, and the City of Ottawa, and the RCMP, and the Ottawa Police. Basically, anybody who, I think maybe even the NDP might even be in this lawsuit as well, because an actual court in Canada, not a kangaroo court or the stacked court like the one that Trudeau tried to run a few months back, in order to review his state of emergency over a bunch of people in with kids in a mosh pit in downtown Ottawa honking truck horns. And I remember reviewing that, and this woman going in and testifying about how the horns traumatized her. Yeah, to give you an idea of how bad it was, and I swear to God, they're actually still trying to use this, which tells you something about how desperate about how desperate Trudeau is. They're still trying to play the white supremacist angle on the convoy protest. And I saw somebody try to pull another member of the Canadian media, by the way, an establishment stooge, trying to play the race card on the convoy protests. And it's like, for those of you who don't know, and this is if somebody tries to do this, and I can't believe they're actually dumb enough to actually try this. White supremacists, and I know because I've run into a shit ton of them on Gab, and a couple of other places. White supremacists have a rather serious issue with two particular groups: Jews and homosexuals. One of the three key organizers of the convoy protest was a gay Jewish man. Now, I don't know about you, but white supremacists are not generally very big on following gay Jews to a fucking protest. They always leave that little detail out. And it's like every time I see somebody try to play the race card on this issue, it's sort of like, yeah, okay, for the record, white. And I mean, they tried pulling multiple excuses on this, around this. There was a photograph where somebody rolled out a Nazi symbology and placed it up, and it was later found out that happened just ever so conveniently happened to happen right in front of Trudeau's personal photographer. That was one of the more famous ones. There was an incident where a guy, and I don't know what the hell somebody would be doing, waving a Confederate flag at a Canadian protest, but there was a guy in mask, obviously masked up, waving a Confederate flag. A guy got publicly shouted down rather quickly, so he left. Then there was another one where they had a bunch of people in masks again, by the way, waving around and waving around Nazi propaganda and whatever, but they were nowhere near the actual protest itself, and that one got shut down very quickly. But the one that was really famous, the one that really blew it out of the water, was there was this photo of somebody laying out a rather large Nazi flag over this entrance to the National Parliament at Rideau Canal, which nobody at the protest actually saw, but was rather conveniently photographed. And Jagmeet Singh's personal assistant was the first one to like it. Here's the problem with that particular photo, was that in order to access that entrance, you have to actually get into the Parliament building to get to that spot, which meant that somebody had to let them in to get there. So that was totally a staged event. Now, the situation around the finances, and this did actually happen, and Chrystia Freeland was actually giggling when she made this announcement. She announced that they were going to be cutting off the accounts of anybody who gave money to the truckers via Give Send Go. GoFundMe, and this is something that I've noticed ever since the trucker convoy protest. GoFundMe has lost most of its legitimacy, like it's no longer being used. Everybody goes through Give Send Go now, or they will use crypto. And this was also pointed out because around the same time, there was a whole bunch of money that went missing from Canadian government coffers, and they couldn't find it, but they somehow had the ability to track down crypto donations to the trucker convoy. And then, of course, there was the use of emergency powers. And let's not even get into the fact that Trudeau didn't even have enough balls. Actually, I don't even know if he has balls at this point. But the first thing he did hold on a second, when he went to when the convoy got to Ottawa, is that he fled across the country to Tofino, and he used his dad's. The only other time the emergency powers were used was the FLQ crisis in Quebec I think it was the early 70s, and they tried really hard to connect what Pierre Trudeau did to make it on the same level as what Justin Trudeau did. A little history lesson for those of you who are not from Canada. The FLQ, there were actual legitimate bombs being detonated in Montreal and Quebec City. There were people being kidnapped, people actually being killed, not trucks honking horns in the middle of downtown Ottawa. They were nowhere near similar. Now, the whole situation around this, I mean, again, right, there is an automatic review that happens whenever you have to exercise emergency powers. And of course, they let Trudeau off the hook. There was also an independent investigation, quote unquote, independent investigation done, of course, by one of Trudeau's ski buddies that also let him off the hook. However, a court ruling very recently, something that Trudeau couldn't stack, ruled against him. Of course, he's actually appealing it. But what's happened is that out of this court ruling, this is where one group has just basically gone in, and apparently there's multiple lawsuits coming in from all angles now. And like I said, Pierre Trudeau, Chrystia Freeland, all the major ministers, the government of Canada, the Ottawa Police, the City of Ottawa, the RCMP, not the Armed Forces, because the Armed Forces pretty much stayed out of it, but basically anybody on the government side that was connected, a lot of the press corps, I think maybe even the province of Ontario might be involved in this lawsuit as well. And it's not just one lawsuit, it might even be a whole bunch of them. But what it basically boils down to is that, and the way Chrystia Freeland, I mean, oh my God, like that press scene where she was actually smirking and giggling while this was going on. That tells you what you need. That pretty much tells you all you need to know about this government, about the level of entitlement they're at. And I mean, just remember, Chrystia Freeland is the deputy prime minister. She's even worse than Justin Trudeau, and I didn't even think. I remember thinking, for instance, when Joe Biden got elected, it was like, well, I mean, I was looking down at the U.S. and said, well, at least we don't have Joe Biden, and it's like, well, no, we got somebody even worse, because Trudeau is making these decisions on his own. And wow, that's really all I got to say about this one. Off to you, Rearson.
At the time when this whole thing was going down, anybody with a quarter of a brain that was trying to see what the world was occurring. Unfortunately, that excludes most of my family. Would be able to see, and that's why I said a quarter of a brain, would be able to see that this is just wrong. I mean, when my cousin came up after my uncle had passed away, and we got into the debate of the topic of getting jabbed, and he was still all for it at the time. I'm thinking to myself, fuck. You're just as intelligent as I am, and yet you've gone off the deep end, and you're would it surprise me if he was to suddenly develop cancer for the next 2 years? No, it wouldn't. I'm hoping he doesn't. Well, my son doesn't. As much from my spouse, but whatever. And everything was in clear violation. I mean, I was following this as much as I could, and there was no, as Naroki had said, at the time with the FLQ back in 1969 or so, I believe is when it happened. Naroki would have been maybe still walking, likely still walking around in diapers.
I wasn't diapers.
I wasn't even. I might have been some desire for my mom to have a baby at that point, but that was like 2 years before I was born. And the comparison of the Wartime Measures Act to what this was all about, it honestly wasn't there. Like I will fully admit my bias at the time, and I still am biased now, but I could not make the connection for it to be valid at that point in time. And I'm not talking about the Wartime Measures Act, I'm talking about the Emergency Measures Act. But you would have to take a look at the buildup of everything that was going on at that point in time. So we're talking about the bribing of the media. Again, $600 million over the course of 5 years for Trudeau to get positive press coverage. You only get that in a banana republic. Or I guess up here in Canada, maybe it's a fur gold. I don't know what the fuck we would be at this point. We're kind of a republic. But that's what Canada turned into. And currently we can see the positive happy shilling for the Turd and Company still going on. Every time Polyev gets in front of a microphone, it turns into a stupid frickin' bloody fucking skirmish. And I wish I could laugh about the whole thing, which in a sense I kind of do. But at the same time as well, though, it is what it is. I would love to say otherwise, but honestly, it is what it is. So something like this I've been waiting for something like this to happen. Now, was I personally affected by it? Not directly, not immediately. Although Trudeau wants to push legislation that is going to protect employers from getting sued by employees. So we're going to have to watch out for that topic, which pisses me right the fuck off, to say the least. But when that unconstitutional ruling was given, yeah, I mean, Freeland can appeal it all she wants, but the fact of the matter is that the floodgates were just opened at that point in time. And anybody that has a legitimate grievance with the Turd and Ottawa and provincial powers, plus the RCMP, plus the possibility of provincial police, wherever that may be, if they have them, Ontario and Quebec being really the only ones for now. Fuck. At this point right now, I still maintain that people have to wake up to what's really going on, and it has to be done slowly and methodically. Otherwise, there's going to be a mass denial, for lack of a better way to say it. And I'm quite comfortable where I am with all of this. I'm just waiting for things to catch up to my comprehension of events as I've been able to see it and to see what's going on. Someone like my cousin, my father, Fuck my spouse. I'm waiting for them to catch up, and maybe I will wait. I probably won't. I don't know. So I can't. I want. I am looking forward to seeing Trudeau get his ass sued. I mean, this is also a guy that's preaching about fucking climate change, and yet he's got his father's vintage roadster that probably pollutes a lot more than I do. Probably the amount of, shall we say, carbon that I produce in a year, his car probably produces in about an hour. Well, if not an hour, maybe over the course of, say, 2 tanks of gas. And as is typical, and I believe as it was illustrated in the novel, was it Animal Farm by Orwell? I think it was Animal Farm. Eventually, the pigs ended up being on top of it all. When it started off, that all animals were equal, and eventually the pigs were at the top, and every other animal was subservient to them. So I really don't see any difference in this. I gotta end this part at this point because
that was Animal Farm. Yeah.
My eyeballs are starting to float a little bit. So Naroki, I'm gonna give it back to you. I'll be back.
Yeah, the aliens would do that to you. Absolutely. So yeah, that was an interesting. But I mean, it explains a lot. Dena Hinshaw is the reason why Jason Kenney will never become prime minister effectively, and it explains why Kenney was making the decisions that he was making, because I mean it was like I say, I'm repeating myself here, but it was the reason why he was making all these decisions was because he was getting his marching orders from Dena Hinshaw, and Dena Hinshaw is a mentally unstable person who caused problems in a province where they were. I mean, like it was going to be very obvious that Kenney was going to lose the confidence of the Conservatives in Alberta, which he did, and he had enough brains to step down, likely because he knew what was coming, and he certainly did know what was coming. And Daniel Smith has stepped in, and I mean, when it comes to a politician right now, especially since Daniel Smith did that thing with parents' rights and everything, I have a lot more faith in Daniel Smith than I have pretty much any other politician right now, which is saying a lot because I don't have much faith in anybody at this point. But so far, Daniel Smith has not been too bad. But with that, let's get into the next one. And this one, when I talk about how desperate Trudeau is getting in order to remain in power, this is what I was talking about. Now, Canada had an election the year after the U.S. had its election. That the vote, everything was counted on the same day. Everything was resolved on the same day. There was none of this dragging out. There was none of this suddenly, like the last batch of votes, you had to have 90% of the people in that ballot box, that bag of votes vote Democrat, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You didn't have any of that in Canada because the one advantage of the Canadian system is that it's a lot. It doesn't go state by state. You have to win individual seats, which means you have to organize 339 elections in 339 individual county places. And I mean, it would be possible to do that, but I mean, not enough to secure a majority. So ballot harvesting does not have the same effect in Canada that it would have in the States. Now, that being said, though, that doesn't stop. And again, another move that Trudeau has been talking about is going to more of a European style electoral system. Would Trudeau attempt to do something like that? Absolutely, he would. What he's basically suggesting that he would have to do is that he would change the representation in the House of Commons from total number of seats won to you get a total percentage of the seats that you have according to the popular vote, which is how most of the European countries do it. It would also, rather conveniently, allow him and Jagmeet Singh and possibly the Green Party or the Bloc Québécois to form an alliance to prevent the Conservative Party of Canada to actually get the number of seats to get the seats that they would need for a majority. Now, keep in mind, under this system, the People's Party of Canada would also end up with about 10 seats. So it's not entirely a loss, but what you're seeing here, and this is what I said right from the very start of this particular show, is that Trudeau is pulling every string humanly possible to try and stay in power, including making stuff like ballot harvesting easier. But I mean, again, ballot harvesting won't work to the same level in Canada that it does in the States, because you have to win a majority of seats in the House of Commons to become prime minister. So ballot harvesting is extremely bad. Rigging the election machines also really won't work particularly well either. I mean, it might work, and this is something that was alleged when Maxime Bernier was going for leadership, and somehow Andrew Scheer got it instead of Maxime Bernier, and there was a whole lot of fuss about that, and Bernier walked away from the Conservative Party, which, by the way, was the reason why the Conservatives didn't win the election in 2021. Hold on a second. You're seeing what you're, again, and I said this at the start, I'm going to repeat it here again. What you're seeing here is you're seeing Trudeau attempting to pull every possible string that he can possibly pull to stay in power. And you have to look at this, and you have to consider the possibility. And I've said this a few times already, and it'd be like, when tomorrow, for instance, when we do the review of the interview with Vladimir Putin, you have to consider the possibility that people like, say, the Biden administration and what Trudeau is doing in Canada and what they've been doing in various Western countries where they do have the power, where the globalists are in control, that these people are so desperate and so big on and so keen on staying in power and so wanting to dictate the lives of everybody else, because they've got all the money in the world and they're bored and they don't know what else to do. I mean, hell, I know what I'd do if I had more money than I could deal with. I know exactly what I'd be doing, and I'd be doing what I'm doing right now. But I'd just be a whole lot more relaxed about it, and I'd have a whole lot more time to work on it, and maybe I'd probably have myself an editing team or whatever to make the videos a little bit better. Yeah, that's what I would be doing if I had enough money to be doing this all the time. We're talking about individuals here who money isn't an issue, and a lot of these people never, ever had to deal with a situation where they're going to potentially be out on the street if they miss their rent, or in like what happened with me back in 2004 and 5, where I had to go 2 and 3 days without eating because I was so low on funds that, I mean, I had to like literally wait for money to come in so that I could go out and get myself grocery. But I did at a couple points back in 2004, 2005. Like I'd go a couple of days without eating. So yeah, these guys have never. A lot of these guys have never had to deal with that in any kind of a form or fashion. And because they've never had to deal with that, they just assume that everybody else can do it. Like, I mean, eating the bugs, or where I live, like electric vehicles. Like, I mean, how the hell, like, how are you going to solar charge vehicles in an environment where the sun only comes out 6 to 8? I'm talking about northern Alberta here. I'm not even going to talk about what it's like way up north where the sun never comes up at all in the winter time. Like, how are you going to charge your vehicle by electric power in an environment like that with solar? Like, I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to run a really, really long AC cable out to the site and use that to charge your car or charge your vehicle? Like, yeah, this is the problem you get when you have elitists that have never had to work or have never had to brave the environment the way I've had to, or the way Rearson has had to, or say some of the other people on who listen to this podcast have had to brave it in order to do something like this. And in the case of Justin Trudeau, I am becoming very convinced that he believes that he has the right to have this power, that he was born into it because his daddy had it. Well, his dad, Pierre, did a lot better. First of all, I'm going to say point this point out, and a lot of people get pissed off about Pierre Trudeau. Pierre Trudeau had very good justifications for using the emergency acts when he did back in the late 60s. He also told the special interest groups to go piss up a rope. You know, I mean, he was an arrogant son of a bitch, and he wasn't, and in the end, he wasn't particularly well liked either. But Justin is a pale imitation of Pierre. And yes, I do think Justin is Pierre's son. I have seen photos of them at the same age, and they look like father. Justin looks like his dad. The big difference is that Justin has hair and Pierre doesn't. Now, Rusin is going to disagree with me on that, but I mean, again, right? You put them side by side. Yeah, at the same age. Yeah, they look like they're related. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rearson on this one.
If I wouldn't be as worried about this if it didn't come down to being able to draw out counting votes over the course of 3 fucking days. I mean, it was in Arizona that the Republican, I think it was around Scottsdale, Phoenix, I can't remember, in that arena where the Republican vote counters, whatever you want to call them, they were more or less escorted out. And then there was the blatant covering up of the plexiglass from inside as to the chicanery going on. Now, again, much like talking about with the second topic, if you had half a brain to see what was going on, and if you could put aside political bias on both sides, most people would realize that, well, it isn't, as Stalin basically said, it isn't who votes that matters, it's who counts the votes that matters. And that's what happened south of the border. That's what's still going on right now in Georgia and probably, I believe, Pennsylvania and I think 1 or 2 other swing states. I could be wrong. My apologies for not remembering, as my brain is a little bit addled as well. Fuck you, Charles. Go fuck yourself. Anyway. So the fact that this can be pushed into 3 days of magical overnight rearrangements of votes. Now, I have to say, strategically, is it going to matter very much in Alberta? No, because the province is basically ready to leave. But I can see them rigging election results. Again, I voted for pubic follicle, Kent hair. You can see where I'm kind of going with that. And regretted it. And I know where Naroki lives. Again, traditionally seems to be more NDP, at least in terms of. Actually, no, I believe where you live, it tends to be NDP for both provincial and national results.
It is,
My writing,
both provincially and nationally. There's a very strong, there's enough of a conservative element in my writing that the Conservatives do occasionally get elected, though. Continue.
Well, I mean, after what's going on now, and perhaps with all the chicanery that Singh is putting up and pushing through and whatever else, maybe that'll change. I don't know. My writing provincially, sadly, is orange, which is NDP, and federally is blue. I don't trust either side. Again, when you combine blue and orange in terms of pigments, you get brown. And what is it? Shit. So, with everything going on at this point, again, with Trudeau and the NDP and whoever else that was supporting the wars, the Emergencies Act that was illegally done, I can see that they're going to try to pull every string possible to fix the election. I have a faint glimmer of hope that Alberta will basically just say, fuck this, we're out. And I hope it gets to that point. I really honestly do. What I'm also hoping is that with my post-secondary education, I can find a job south of the border. Is it ideal? No, it's not. But again, after about 3 months, I can register to get myself a firearm, depending upon the state, and I will happily get the fuck out of this insane asylum. I'm not going to win any votes. I'm not going to win any popularity contests by having this opinion. But you know what? I don't give a fuck. Canada is becoming a communist country. It is turning into communism. Progressively, one step at a time. It just takes time to see all of those thin salami slices add up. I mean, honestly, right now, I just had a flashback to one person from my high school. I'm not even going to say his name, but I could see him being still very liberal, and probably if he's still employed in the journalism side of things, I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if he was dependent on Trudeau telling him to get on your knees, boy, and get under my desk. He was very intelligent.
He'd have to shove Charles Adler aside to do that.
Well, I'm pretty sure that they're fighting for the same dick. Only last I heard, he was in Ontario. Adler is in the Calgary area, but who fucking knows? I don't know, don't care. And the good thing is I wouldn't know Adler if I walked by him downtown or in Shidduck Mall or wherever he happens to frequent. For me, I'm sure to look at Adler, if I was to actually see him, I was like, oh, he's just a worn out old man. So, who is as compromised as most politicians are. But we'll leave that one alone. Anyway, given all of the dirty tricks and the expected chicanery, of those in charge, and they know they're going to lose. And again, Jagmeet Singh is only holding out because he wants to get his federal pension, and then he runs out, never to be seen again. As far as I'm concerned, that shit should be changed to 12 to 16 years. Just like everybody else, to get a pension, you have to be there for a while. In fact, I would make it, if it was up to me, I think every MP that goes through the system, you need to be there for at least 12 years. At least. But whatever. I mean, that'll filter out quite a number of people over the course of 2 to 3 elections, or by-elections, but whatever. So, again, the whole thing of it being watch California, CA, or Canada, CA. I've heard within the truther community that Canada is probably one of the most corrupt places to be. It's just that on the surface, everything seems to be decent, civil. We're nice people, eh? Except when you get to Ottawa. Oh, and I'm going to say this about Ottawa again. If you look at the logo for Ottawa, I'm seeing 3 6s, and I'm seeing an owl. And what sound does an owl make, at least in English? Who? As in WHO, which is all part of everything that's wrong with what happened with the scamdemic and the Arrive scam app, and which we're gonna have to talk about next week. So, fuck, that's not going away anytime soon. Anyway, I'm gonna keep. I don't want to ramble on anymore about this one. It's not surprising when you step out, away, and up, and to hopefully see the situation for what it is. So, Naroki, back to you.
Yeah, it's definitely I mean, yeah, like, again, like I said at the start of this, bird's eye view or a 1,000-foot view looking down on what's happening with Trudeau is what you're seeing is that Trudeau and the Liberals are attempting to do literally everything they can to try and stay in power at the moment, which includes doing stuff like rigging elections, trying to ram stuff through around the press, etc., etc., etc. And none of it's actually working. And it would have worked had Twitter not been bought out by Elon Musk. It might have actually worked without because you now have Rumble and you have Twitter refusing to play ball. What happens is it doesn't matter what. This is something I'm going to go on. You're not going to see Facebook, for instance, shutting down massive numbers of accounts like they did back in 2020 because it's not going to work. Right? We will be covering YouTube doing its usual. And here's the thing. I mean, it's not going to work, but YouTube seems hellbound to go into yet another round of censorship to quote unquote fortify the election, to make sure that the election still has some integrity. Of course, that integrity is, of course, making sure that Joe Biden is completely above and immune from any type of heavy criticism, or that there's not a Hunter Biden. Or here's something else. If they're literally going to try to prevent the Hunter Biden laptop story from having another run out this time. The only problem is that it's not going to work because Twitter is not going to play ball this time around. So it's not going to matter what Facebook and YouTube and Google attempt to do. By the way, those companies, and we just found out about this quite recently, Google is losing money hand over fist. And we actually have a couple of topics around that next on the show Sunday, where we will be discussing those very things. the Body Shop and a couple of other places have now decided that get woke, go broke was the way to go, and now they're going broke. But anyway, that's enough about this one. This next one, I am going to I have stuff to say on this one, but what I'm going to do, because this is the one that Rearson wanted to do. I am going to let Rearson do this one, which is the European Union gives up against the farmers, and Canada has joined the farmers' protest. This is one that Rearson wanted to throw in. So there's going to be a slight changing of the order on this one, and Rearson gets to go first. So Rearson, take it away.
Yay, no sloppy seconds for me. Okay. It wasn't so much about the EU giving up. I will give points to Kelso for saying that all that they're doing is they're just withdrawing. They're not going to win on the matter because they know that given enough time, and when food prices become unbearable, where you have to choose between food, rent, and utilities, and your kids are starving, that's when riots start. The last time that anything like this happened recently enough that was covered was in Egypt, and that's when the price of food ended up costing about 40% of people's income. And at the end of the day, can you sleep outside? Yeah. Can you make alternate accommodations? To dig a dugout and whatever else out of the ground, or wherever you may be. Yeah, you can do it. There are more than enough videos on how to do that on YouTube. Can you substitute clean drinking water for a while? How long can you go without food and or water? Not very long. And not if you have children. And people are at the breaking point. Now, here in Canada, for those of you that are not aware, the carbon tax has been applied to as many things as possible. So in Alberta, where Naroki and I live, it's much more common, especially in apartment buildings, multi-dwelling units, for heat to be maintained by electricity than it would be natural gas. And I've heard of heating oil, but those systems are out in the rural parts of the country, by and large. In Atlantic Canada, where they are still Liberal voters, funny enough, an exception to the carbon tax was handed out to them because, well, just as we were saying before about Trudeau and Singh doing everything they can possible to maintain their grasp on power, they've thrown Atlantic Canada a big enough bone, shall we say. Now, Poilievre has basically said, well, what about the rest of the country? Or is it only for liberal-friendly ridings? And, of course, it's going to be... no, it's only for this part of the country for reasons A, B, C, D, or Z, which they're pulling out of their ass. So the rest of us have to suffer. Now, don't get me wrong. Everything that's been going on in Europe hasn't gone away just because it hasn't been covered in the news. And I'm watching on YouTube the pleb with his YouTube channel, and I like the guy. I really do. I like his style. And he's 100% behind everybody. I've posted a couple of comments that's gotten his attention or attention from everybody else. And I'm fully behind the European farmers to fight back because it has to be done. Now, am I fighting back here in Canada? No, because it hasn't gotten to that point. And I know I don't have enough of a following on social media, whether it's Crackbook or X, Twitter. I sure as fuck don't have anything on Instagram. At least I don't think I do. No, I'm pretty sure I don't. So I don't have the voice to have people start to stand up and start to fight back because, as Kelso has said, when it comes down to it, how insufferable does insufferable have to be before people are going to stand up, or something to that effect? And yet again, here in Canada, we're not there yet. And right now, at this point, the people that have to stand up are going to be the farmers. And I feel that much like where I've seen this happen in Europe, is that the populace, by and large, is not going to disagree. Because at the end of the day, when they realize that so much of their livelihood, their life for that matter, relies on farmers being able to produce food that has a tight profit margin on their end, they don't want to gouge the market for them to be able to have not necessarily a better life, but a more comfortable life. And I have always appreciated agriculture. I just can't do it because I've got allergies or whatever other environmental reason. Now, fast forward up until about a week and a half ago, where in the Cowichan Valley in BC, the farmers have had enough and they've started to protest locally. I don't know what's happened with them, but the fact that it has at least started, I'm hoping will push its way off of the island and make its way across the country. Because I'm pretty sure that Canadian farmers have had enough and they are looking for not necessarily a reason to tell Trudeau to go get stuffed, but it's there. The embers, not enough oxygen has been pushed into the fire where the coals are with more fuel for it to light up yet, but things are smoking. So all that I can do right now is just wait. I don't like it, but that's all I can do, is to be realistic and wait. I was, as Kelso had said as well too, is that what Naroki and I are doing here, that maybe is all that we're able to do at this point, and this is our outlet to at least express ourselves and to maybe, hopefully, I don't know, not necessarily wake people up, but to at least get people maybe to think a little bit more than before. And I'm not doing any more than that. It's not in my interest. It really honestly isn't. So, folks, hopefully, I'm thinking within about 2 months, maybe 3, maybe there will be Canadian farmers are going to basically hit the road provincially and nationally. And if that is the case, any living in Canada that are listening to this, or yourself included, make sure you've got food for, well, maybe that's what Taro by Genie was talking about. Try to have food and water if at all possible, or at least, water filtration, however that's going to work for you. Have that be ready for about 2 to 3 weeks. Now, I've got a stove here just in case, a camping stove just in case the power goes out. So that reminds me, I need to get about another 2 or 3 boxes of propane just in case. But just be ready because anything could happen at this point. The whole system that we're in, what I would call the matrix, it's ready to collapse, but just don't get yourself caught flat-footed. That's all I have to say on this one. So, Naroki, on to you.
Hold on. So, yeah. A lot of what was going on in the Cowichan Valley had something to do with an estuary to boot. The rumor that was floating around, and he did actually try to put out, and Trudeau did try to put out feelers back when they were having the farmer protests in the Netherlands. By the way, the issue of the European Parliament and the British, I'm going to have to say the British government probably is going to have to follow suit. They have to take the knee to the farmers for very good reason. One, we're not eating the fucking bugs. And this is, of all the things the globalists are doing, this has to be the most absolutely insane one. Attempting to, yes, it is incredibly important if you're going to have a techno-fascist state that you control the food supply and that people eat what you tell them to eat, which is going to be those icky, disgusting insect bars that you had in Snowpiercer. Hopefully, I will either not be anywhere near a city when that happens, or I'll be dead, one or the other. But, what they got to do, and specifically, each country has its own unique challenges. One of the big challenges in Canada is the fact that Canada has a small armed force, so Trudeau cannot project military force much beyond the cities and a couple of transport corridors. Hence the reason why he has to slowly but surely deconstruct all the transport. And there have been shortages at places like, for instance, northern BC at one point when they had the flooding of the harbor, and of course they also had that strike for a little bit too. And Prince Rupert was the only place they were getting stuff in, and Prince Rupert just does not have the capability of handling the amount of traffic that Vancouver has to handle. Can handle But what Trudeau did during the thing is that he actually did try to pull the same thing here that the government in the Netherlands was trying to pull. The reason why he had to back away, and this is something that is unique to Canada, is that, yes, while the center of power is in the Laurentian Basin, the actual economic, like the place that is paying for everything right now, and I mean literally almost everything right now, is Alberta. Now, thanks to Justin deciding to bring, and I cannot believe he was again, I'm going to have to say this. I have to say this every once in a while just to remind people. People go, well, how come? Isn't it fairly obvious that Guilbeault was going to do what he was going to do? Yes, it was fairly obvious what Guilbeault was going to do, what he was going to do. The fact that Trudeau was so full of himself that he thought that Guilbeault was the guy to make energy minister to deal with Daniel Smith. I already have a pretty good idea how those meetings went, and I'm not surprised that Daniel Smith did the things that she's done. And Daniel Smith actually had to exercise notwithstanding on national energy policy because Guilbeault, likely at the direction of Trudeau, who's taking his orders from the WEF or whoever, the globalists or whoever it is, are refusing to be in the least bit reasonable. And this is exactly, and we actually experienced this at one point when there was a deep freeze here in Alberta. And Rearson saw. I take it you got that alert on your phone back in January, Rearson, the one about.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
I got that. I was.
Yep. As I said at the time to you, with the information being received, we were probably about 2 hours out, an hour out of having rolling blackouts to take the ease off the energy grid.
Yeah, and the reason why that happened is and they literally tried to blame this on Daniel Smith too. That was what really blew my mind. They tried to, Daniel Smith didn't build enough energy for. Well, here's the thing: she did try to increase the power generation capacity, except that the federal government, you have to go through multiple. And I mean, I understand why they have to do it, because I mean, it's like you have to be respectful towards the environment. You do. I totally get that, right? You just can't go around building everything you want. There have been some very clear cases of when there's been irreparable destruction to the environment because of just rampant growth without any consideration for the environment around them. I totally get that. What happened was that Daniel Smith has attempted to, well, I mean, first of all, what she did was she moved stuff. I mean, it was very clear to her that the alternative energy generation was not going to produce enough electricity to get Alberta through a cold snap. So she moved away from that, and she went back to oil, and she went back to oil, gas, and coal. The federal government threw up roadblock after roadblock after roadblock after roadblock, and these plants have not come back online, which is why Daniel Smith was forced to exercise notwithstanding when it came to this particular issue. And what we got was that alert, which they tried to blame on Daniel Smith, which was actually the federal government's fault. But I'm kind of getting to the point here. What happened is basically that Trudeau's already Alberta. There's more support percentage-wise in Alberta to leave Confederation than there is in Quebec in terms of percentages right now, for good reason. I am not on. I'm kind of still on the fence about leaving the country. My reservations, though, revolve around the fact that, if I have, as bad as Trudeau is, if I have to choose between Trudeau and China, I'll go with Trudeau. And because, I mean, I know what China is like, right? I mean, I haven't been there, I haven't lived there, but I mean, I've seen enough reports, and I've seen enough people go missing, and I saw what happened in Hong Kong, and I've seen everything else. Like, China would come in here like a bunch of vultures. And I am not, no one would step in. Maybe the U.S. would step in, but not with Biden at the helm. They wouldn't. So, yeah, there is a then what scenario that comes in with Alberta leaving. But that wouldn't have mattered, because what would have happened is if Trudeau had attempted to exercise the same restrictions here that they had done in the Netherlands, he would have pissed off the farmers. And that would have been it. Because it's, for those of you who are not from Western Canada specifically, if you're listening in Britain, or if you're listening in the United States, especially, I want people in Quebec in particular. I don't imagine I don't have very many people who listen to the show in Quebec. And so the people in Quebec, what would happen if Alberta were to separate is that people in Alberta would just get up one morning and go, yeah, fuck it, we're gone. And if he had pissed off the farmers, that's exactly what would happen. You could have 50 referendums at that point. The vote would have been the same. And, again, right, you have to kind of put a tinfoil hat on this one. The moves that they're making are designed to do one thing and one thing only, to control the food supply and to get people to go into the cities where they're able to slack them into these little 15-minute sectors and control them like moo cow. That's effectively what this is about. I'm living in a city right now where they are clandestinely trying to go ahead with a version. They're trying to field test a 15-minute city in the city that I currently live in. I mean, the neighborhood that I live in Edmonton, it is everything I need is within 15 minutes of where I live anyway. But I mean, if you're living out in the suburbs, the only way a city like Edmonton, or a 15-minute city would work, would be if you shut down the entire oil and gas city, which, by the way, is exactly what they're doing. And make no mistake about it, at some point, Trudeau is going to start going after the farmers. Especially if he's reelected, he's not going to get reelected. So, I mean, my guess is at some point, maybe not in this particular parliamentary run, but on the last one, he might just start trying to go after the farmers because, yeah, he is that much of an a disenfranchised egomaniac. And I'm glad that the farmers held their ground. You're going to have to start paying particular attention to the corridors of transport. Another thing that Guilbeault has just publicly announced is that they've gotten money to send to Ukraine to keep the war going on there. But Guilbeault has suddenly decided that they're not going to put the money into infrastructure, aka road construction, etc., like they used to, which is, of course, a deliberate attempt to fuck around with the transport corridors. Surprise, surprise. Yet it's gonna next year, maybe not this year, but it is going to get ugly. Jagmeet Singh is not going to participate in a non-confidence motion to get rid of Trudeau unless he is given absolutely no other choice. So, yeah, we've got Trudeau until 2025. And Trudeau definitely, if you look at some of the stuff he's doing, and again, I keep saying this, right? Like, these are the moves that somebody who's really desperate tries to make. And with that, I'm done unless you have anything else to add here, Rearson.
No, I'm good. Let's move on.
Okay, this next one. Oh my God. Okay, so getting into the oil and gas, which is why I did talk about oil and gas here in the last section. Charlie Angus of the New Democrat Party proposed a bill, and this bill, anywhere else you look at it and you go, that is fucking ridiculous. But given what I've seen with Trudeau and how he has been acting, this bill is, and keep in mind too, hold on a second, that he has been acting, you can't just say that they wouldn't attempt to do this. And now we get into some of the real sinister and dark stuff, which is why I think which is why I was hoping Kelso and Henrik would be able to jump on here and listen a little bit to this. This bill, the way it is worded, the gas companies in Canada would not even be able to do press stories to defend themselves. They would not be able to, if, for instance, a private citizen in Alberta attempting to do stories to defend the oil and gas industry in Alberta would not be able to do so. He would be risking, which is, again, a good thing that Daniel Smith brought in the notwithstanding clause. Because if Trudeau had, if this bill passes, and it probably, I'd like to say it probably won't. I'm guessing it probably won't. You know, Trudeau, but given what I've seen out of Trudeau, you just can't. Just like that Leah Thomas lawsuit, you know, the whole situation on the surface is patently ridiculous, but because of the people that are in power, you can't just look at them and go, "That's patently ridiculous. They won't pass it." It's like, yeah, we got Justin Trudeau and Jagmeet Singh. They just might pass this bill. And that's the way it's going. And they're doing all sorts of other things. Like, for instance, Alberta does not have any capacity to produce cars of its own. So what's going to start happening as of the end of 2024 is that they're only going to be, the only way the auto manufacturers can comply with Trudeau's electric vehicle mandates is to reduce the number of gas-powered automobiles that they're going to make. So there will literally only be 8,000 trucks or 8,000 vehicles sold in Alberta that are gas-powered. That's the only way they can do it. Now, of course, there's going to be, and of course, the companies are not making, like the big auto manufacturers are also not making parts for the vehicles anymore. That's not going to matter. There's going to probably be manufacturers in Alberta and other places that are going to start making the spare parts to keep the gas vehicles that are available running. By the time, again, the overall consensus here is that this is never gonna actually get into play because Trudeau will be gone before he can fully implement it. Again, though, common sense says that, but I mean, given some of the stuff that we've been talking about earlier, he might just try and do this stuff. He might just try to ram this stuff through just because he can and because he's that type of he has clearly demonstrated himself to be that petty and shallow and vindictive a human being. This bill would have effectively eliminated the ability of oil and gas and coal to even defend themselves in the media. You also look at some of the stuff that they've been doing in the media, and of course, it's what they did around Facebook. Facebook, was done to limit the amount of internal press, so they wouldn't be able. People, at least on Facebook, wouldn't be able to see Canadian content, and the whole situation is such that that's their attempt. They're attempting, and this is, of course, this is not the only place he's doing. He's also attempting to do this around the residential schools. He's attempting to do it around hate speech, criticism of feminism, all sorts of other areas that he's attempting to do this. And yeah, this one, and I mean, by the way, this is not even the worst one. Number 6 is potentially even worse than this, but this is really disturbing. If I had still been even possibly considering the possibility of voting for the New Democrats in the next election, this pretty much killed it. And again, I got to point out something to you. And whenever I do my political compass test, I come out as an NDP voter. But the way the NDP has been acting, there's no way that I can consciously choose to support them. So even though guys like Maxime Bernier and Pierre Poilievre are not necessarily on board with me politically, there's no, like, I cannot in good conscience vote Liberal or NDP. Like, I am one of those left UGs. And, it's like, and I see stuff like this, And also, by the way, the NDP, and this actually happened. They actually had to call them. They had the NDP had their national convention in Hamilton. The police were actually called in because things got that rowdy and raucous. And there was like literally one point where one of the speakers like said that she would only listen to feedback from people who were women and people of color. Whites were not allowed to respond back to her. Yes, that actually happened at the NDP convention. So, the NDP is not the alternative. And, I mean, is there a possibility that there's going to be a percentage of the Liberals that are suddenly going to go, well, no, the Liberals aren't going to win. I'm going to switch my vote over to the NDP. This time the NDP might possibly be able to sneak in. It's possible. But, at this point, the Liberals are so far down in the polls that they're actually running the possibility, they're hitting the possibility in terms of seats where the Bloc Québécois might actually end up becoming the opposition again. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rearson.
You know what? The Bloc taking over, I would almost relish that. Actually, I would relish that because that would come down to it being Quebec versus the rest of Canada. And both would be fighting for their regional interests, shall we say. But that's not the topic of what this is all about. I mean, conceivably, this could make Danielle Smith trying to promote, or Scott Moe for that matter, or the premiers of either Newfoundland and Labrador or Nova Scotia for that matter, try to export or push for more investment in oil and gas. So you have potentially, and I wouldn't be the least bit surprised that British Columbia doesn't itself already have enough resources or reserves of natural gas and or oil, hydrocarbons, whatever, much less that being available up in the Arctic territories. My opinion is that the NDP has been so thoroughly compromised, so horribly, terribly run, that the only option that they have is to continue to drive themselves off the deep end. And I don't really see this being any different than everything that Obama was doing to curb and curtail American energy independence. In fact, if anything, there is no difference in my eyes. Don't get me wrong, I don't want to say that, but let's be honest with ourselves, folks. I mean, Pennsylvania was one of the biggest states to rush to Trump because he was going to cut the red tape and he was going to bring back the jobs, and he was going to bring back the energy, and he was going to drag down the cost of energy. Any society, any company for that matter, and I've said it before, and I'll say it again, it's like Canada is not a country, Canada is a corporation. I have heard of, in Ontario, I believe, I don't know what the name of the company, I don't remember what the name of the business was, but they were absolutely fudging the cost of energy, of electricity, because if head office actually was to see how much it was costing them per month, much less per year, they would shut down operations, and there would have been a lot of people that would have been out of work. And this is in Ontario. So this left-wing dingbat, and that's the nicest I can say that, wants to jail people to promote oil and gas. I'm not saying he is. I'm not saying he isn't. I'm kind of saying I'm hoping he is. I'm hoping he is one of those terribly compromised idiots that should be nowhere near, well, minors. Again, not saying he is, but I wouldn't be surprised if. And these are the morons that think that they know better to bring about the necessary change for. What I said earlier in tonight's podcast about the left being so far off base that anybody that is, well, right of Marx is considered extreme right. It's shit like this. I mean, I remember when the NDP was about the working man. It was about the middle class. It was about trying to maintain the standard of living that a society needs to be sustainable. They're not behind that anymore. I mean, Noroki mentioned Rachel Notley earlier tonight. I would, not that we're supposed to hit a woman, but, well, I wouldn't be jumping in to defend her, shall we say, if someone was beating the crap out of her. Not that I'm supporting or condoning violence. I'm just honestly saying, if something were to happen to her, I wouldn't give a fuck. Not to say that I would join in, but it would cross my mind. So if Ottawa is going to go out of their way and to further isolate Alberta, if it is going to be agriculture, it's going to be, it will be the energy sector, oil and gas. Don't get me wrong, folks. I'm not terribly happy with hydrocarbons, but at the same time as well, there isn't anything out there that is as remotely consistent and reliable as diesel and or gasoline. You want to go on your trip? Well, guess what? You're either going to have to drive or you're going to have to fly. Those are your options. You may not drive. You can get on a bus if it's available, but guess what? That vehicle still needs diesel or some sort of a hydrocarbon. And fucking Charlie Angus, oh my God, the man has his head so far shoved up his ass. Every time he farts, he thinks it's a breath of fresh air. Now, yes, anatomically that is impossible, but this is the level of idiocy and insanity that we're dealing with. So, to the NDP at this point, I say bravo, golf clap. Please keep doing what you're doing because you're showing the world, you're showing your electorate what is really going on behind the scenes. I mean, fuck, when was it? Harper, the 2008 or so election, there was Pierre Poutine. I'm pretty damn sure that Pierre Poutine was Poilievre running cover and doing the electoral hijinks for Harper at that point in time. Can't say it was, can't say it wasn't. Don't know. But now there's anybody. Okay, will this bill go through and become enacted for law? Maybe. I don't know. I mean, all it takes is for the NDP, is for Jagmeet Singh to tell Trudeau, push this through. And I guarantee that we're going to see a big fucking problem that's going to start to erupt in the West. And don't be terribly surprised if Confederation of Canada doesn't make it through. Don't be surprised at all, folks. And that's all I'm going to say, my friend. I'm done on this one. So let's move on to... Oh, this one's going to be interesting. I'm done.
Yeah, wow. This one is potentially of all the ones, and if you've made it this far in, of all the things that we've talked about today in this show, this is the one that has the most sinister overtones to it. This is the one that is potentially scary, and I didn't really care. I mean, there was some back a couple of years ago when my mom was on the verge of dying, when it became very clear that she was not going to recover. We did have the possibility, like my mom had made it quite clear, if it was at the point where she was stuck in a hospital bed where she couldn't talk or she couldn't give consent to what she was doing, and that she was infirm, and it was very clear that she was never going to recover, that she had basically given permission to my older brother and my stepdad. She said, pull the plug. Because I mean, I don't want to be hanging around indefinitely for years, for everybody to be waiting around. So she said that to me. I don't know whether she said it to my other two sisters, but she definitely told me that's what she had told Harvin, my Harv being my brother and my stepdad. And I was like, okay, fine. We didn't get to the medically assisted suicide. Did come up as a possibility. It was not discussed seriously. The issue here is, and this is back when the Kevorkian days were on. Medically assisted suicide was given to individuals who were quite clearly not going to recover from their physical malady. They weren't going to get any better. They were just going to get worse. They were going to become a burden to everybody around them. And you know, and this is something that would occur with back. I know this for a fact. This is what the natives used to do. They used to do one of two things. For instance, with Eskimos, if a person became too old or infirm and became a burden on the tribe, what that old person would do is they would just simply volunteer to be left behind, and they would starve to death. Or what they would do is, in the middle of the night, they would just simply walk away from the safety of the tribe and just lie down and basically die from hypothermia. So this is not unprecedented. And my idea with medically assisted suicide is that's what it was. But then they changed the version, and suddenly it was people who just like people in their 20s who were physically fine, who just didn't feel like living anymore. Right? And that was like, no, you don't. I mean, I get it. I have encountered people, because I'm in a 12-step program, I have encountered people, including one individual who decided he was going to commit death by cop and decided he was going to keep robbing banks and basically go out in a gunfight with the cops. Only this was his words to myself and to a guy in our own group, is that the one time that he did it, he pulled out the gun and he forgot to turn the safety off. He forgot to turn the safety off. So he clicked the gun and the safety was on and the cops rushed him. It was more of a comedy than anything. I never met the guy again. I probably should have kept that number. It would have made for a fairly good movie, actually. But I mean, the guy clearly had such a crippling addiction that he just didn't want to keep going anymore. So yeah, do people who are younger get to the point where they just want to give up and walk away? Yeah, I was almost there myself at one point. And it's a very dark, painful, ugly place to be when you get there. I'm talking from direct personal experience. You look back, I mean, for me, when I was in that spot, I looked back on the potential that I had and how it had all, keep in mind, I was only 17 when this happened. And I was like, about how disappointing things had turned out for me. And I started thinking that maybe it was better off if I wasn't around anymore. Now, I never got to the point where I did it. But I mean, I had family members come up to me, and I was this is part of the reason why I don't really talk to anybody in my family anymore. There were 2 or 3 people in my family that literally just stood back and fucking watched. Right? So, yeah, there is that part. And Trudeau expanded the program to allow these people medical assistance in dying, or MAID, allowed the MAID program for them. Then what they did is they slid in mental illness. Now, my understanding with mental illness is that the issue around mental illness is that the board decides. There's a literal death board that decides whether you qualify for medical assistance in dying or MAID. It doesn't go to the courts. It's a board that is a literal death board that decides this. Now, this has, and of course, when they found that out, most of the doctors kind of went, whoa, no, that's not acceptable. We're not doing it. So it didn't get it. The fact of the matter is they still pressed on anyway. So they didn't kill it entirely. What they did is they kicked it down the road for a few years, so that, hopefully when Trudeau is booted out of office, and he probably will be, that this won't come up. But the way the medical assistance in dying program, or the MAID program, was going to be done is that it was going to apply to people with mental illness, and it wasn't going to be decided in the courts in that particular situation. It was going to be decided by a board. Now, this leaves open a very sinister possibility here, because this has been used before, although not to this degree. What this potentially opened up is the possibility here that they could take political dissidents, people like me, people like Rearson, they could stick us in mental institutions, and they could go, I'm sorry, Naroki, Rearson, you have antisocial personality disorder. There is no current treatment for that, so you really basically have 2 choices. You can either accept MAID, or you can be chemically lobotomized. So basically, you spend the last few days of your life sitting in a room in a diaper, pooping your pants, not able to walk, speak, or do anything functional anymore. It's your choice. That's the direction that this was potentially heading in. And before anybody gets in my face about this and goes, oh, you're just being stupid. You're just being ridiculous. Of course, they're not going to do that. That is just insane that they won't weaponize it to that degree. Well, I'm going to bring up an issue that happened with another bill called the Rape Shield Law. Now, when the Rape Shield Law got passed back in 2014, 2015, the governments were saying in the West, were saying the same thing. Oh, it's not going to be used to weaponize feminists against men so they could just simply make up an accusation and hide behind the cloak of anonymity. Well, the man has his reputation destroyed. Well, that's exactly what happened. Just ask Jean Gomeshi. Just ask just ask Matt Ariza. Just ask Trevor Bauer. Well, the woman who accused Trevor Bauer stepped out in the open, but the woman who accused Matt Ariza, though, there's photos of her, but there's photos of her face, but there's no name attached to her. But once they started looking, like there are a lot of cases like this out there where the woman got to, in a particular case with Jean Gomeshi, 2 of his 3 accusers got to hide behind the Rape Shield Law. And that Rape Shield Law stayed in place even after Jean Gomeshi was found not guilty. Lucy de Gatturi committed perjury for all intents and purposes. On the stand, there has been no consequences for Lucy de Gatturi for doing that. So it was weaponized. Andrew Tate, had he not been living in Romania, where there is no rape shield law, would probably still be in jail, because what happened was that the press was just basically, especially in the West, the press, even in Romania, was acting as though this was law in effect. And when he got the right attorney, the attorney looked at the situation and was, well, there's no rape shield law here. So they brought out the actions of Andrew Tate's accusers. And of course, some things immediately popped up, like instead of these poor traumatized girls heading home to their families to be comforted after they were released from the tyrant Andrew Tate's care, instead of going home, they went off to the Riviera for about a week and a half. The fact that they disappeared, as soon as the accusation got made, as soon as they were able to, they split the country, they left Romania, and they have never gone back. The fact of the matter is that one of the 2 accusers has, I believe, has filed up to 7 false accusation claims. One of those people that she accused is killed himself, committed suicide over it. There's videos of these 2 women freely leaving Andrew Tate's mansion with money and coming back twice. There's video of them on their Instagram horsing around and fooling up and doing girly stuff at Andrew Tate's mansion, completely unfettered and uninterrupted, posting live feed on Instagram, uninterfered with by anybody at Tate's mansion while Tate was out of town. All of this would not have been revealed had this one lawyer not told Tate that no, there is no rape shield law in Romania. They can't hide behind it, right? So if you're going to come and tell me that MAID isn't going to be weaponized, especially given, and this is the reason why I put MAID last, especially given all of the other stuff that we have seen being done tonight. No. And that is exactly what he would do. And I mean, if he is reelected, that is exactly what he will do, because he can, because that's what he wants to do. And I hate to say this about Trudeau, but again, right, when we get into the Putin video tomorrow, we're going to see a little bit more of this. right? We're going to look at this, and we're going to look, and you have to consider the very serious possibility here, even more so than what's going on in the United States with Joe Biden, that Trudeau is a guy who will burn the house down to rule over its ashes before walking away. And it frightens me to no end to say that, because unlike Rearson, I am more for, because I know what the state of the Canadian Armed Force is, I am probably more for, say, going into one of the smaller towns in Canada and getting a plot of land somewhere and a small house, as opposed to fleeing down to the United States. That is just me, though. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rearson. And just remember, Rearson, you'd be in the same boat as me. Chemical lobotomization or MAID if you got caught. Continue.
Well, I would try to Jeffrey Epstein myself, just because I would rather take myself out rather than to live out my remaining life as a chemically brain-addled, not idiot, but siphon on leech on humanity, or I'll tell the state to kill myself. I'd rather do it myself. Ow. I started to see MAID for what it was, which was an excuse of population control for people that are. I don't see this, honestly, in one extreme at least anyway, not being really any different than in Alberta for a child to decide that it doesn't want to be biologically female or male or whatever, and to go with the flow as to what, quote, experts are going to be telling this individual. I don't see any difference at all. In fact, I see none. So this, in my opinion, is part of this overreaching level of control that, my opinion being, rather sadistic individuals want to exert over the weak-willed parts of society, which there are, for now at least anyway, in my opinion, far too many. Way too many. Am I right? Yeah, maybe. Am I wrong? Probably not. But that's what it is. I mean, there have been enough, not necessarily female, let me rephrase that. I haven't heard of too many Gen Zers or whatever the current generation is that's going out into the real world and realizing, I can't buy a house. Well, fuck no, you can't buy it. You cannot buy a house because the cost of inflation has pushed people such as Hiroki and myself out of the market. And given how rigged a system it is, you're not going to get it. The bank is lending you cash that they don't have unto themselves. You're just agreeing to be their debt slave. Sorry to burst your bubble, folks, if any of you are thinking about buying a home, or you are in the process, or you're stuck in a contract with the bank, and the bank is walking away just kind of going, sucker, we got you for 5 to 25 years or whatever the case may be, as to however long it's going to take to pay that fucking thing off. And this just popped into my head as well, too. Now, I do listen to Better Bachelor or Joker, and I do enjoy listening to Terrence Pop, and when I can, Rollo Tomasi. And the amount of females that are on psychotropic medications because, I don't know, for whatever reason or another, I don't know why, but they're messed up at the fucking head.
They're coming for you already, see?
No, they're going away. I already had the fire department at my fucking place when you called me. But anyway, given the overall percentage of females that are on head meds, that to me could also be a precursor to try to encourage them to delete, either through the option of what we were talking about, where you are a prisoner of the state, or the state gives you the option. Don't get me wrong, I realize what I'm throwing out there is it more or less is a Hail Mary. But let's look at what's happened with COVID. Let's look at what's happened to the percentage of men that are getting married. Like, the numbers are dropping. Women are finding themselves being on the receiving end, and they have to be solitary. Women are by nature, they have to have typically someone with them. Men don't necessarily need to. At least the ones that are not terribly biochemically altered in their brain. So, would I be terribly surprised of this having been offered to women that are just having a really, 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 really bad day or a bad month or a bad period of time? No. Would I be surprised that they would have considered doing it? No, wouldn't surprise me at all either. So, to me, this is another leg on the stool, take that where you will, to help depopulate the planet. And if you think that Trudeau came up with this fucking idea, oh God, no. The man's hiding behind a non-disclosure agreement with a student of his, female, from what I understand, from a private school out in Vancouver. He loves his booze. He loves his greens, shall we say. And he is not... Again, having been part of a Toastmasters club, I have more control over my verbiage, my wordage, and I do try to avoid using the word or whatever, as Trudeau is notorious for still.
Oh yeah, I try to avoid that as well. Continue.
The juice box thingy. Why don't you just call it a fucking juice box? So anyway, Trudeau can barely string together 4 words without having extensive practicing of talking points every day with his handlers. Sorry to say it, folks. That's my opinion. And I don't think I'm wrong. I don't. But wherever his patriarchal heritage is from, I'll just phrase it that way, regardless of where he's from, whoever his biological father is, he is nowhere near being a statesman. He is nowhere near being a real dictator. He's not even... I'm going to compare myself to him, but I consider myself to be more masculine than he isn't.
Oh, I mean, he's got, again, if you guys have to jump in here for just a quick second here, he's got all of Trudeau, his dad's style, but none of his substance. And I'm going to indulge the part of going to act on the assumption because a lot of people do seem to think that he's Fidel Castro's son. He doesn't have the skill to stay in power the way Fidel does. I mean, he's got the ruthlessness, but he doesn't have any of the
He doesn't have. Yeah, he doesn't have the staying ability.
He doesn't have the staying ability of allegedly the other person who's been accused of being his dad, who I don't think is his dad. But that's not what we're discussing tonight.
No. Again, I would say look at what he said about his alleged biological father. We've come not to honor Caesar, but to bury him. And yet his eulogy for Castro was overflowing. So to me, is it concrete evidence? No, but to me it's a strong indicator. Anyway, regardless of that being what it is, whoever his father may be, I'll just say it as that, leaving it open for interpretation. He's not as ruthless as his possible father from Cuba, and he is not nearly as intellectually. The guy's a fucking pothead.
No, he's nowhere. He doesn't have anywhere near the intellectual capacity of Pierre.
No,
Pierre was not a particularly well-liked guy at the end either.
No, but as you said, though, Pierre was smart. He knew the winds of change. He knew he was done, so he stepped down and stepped out, even after coming back.
And he didn't keep into special interest very much either. I got to point that out too. Continue.
Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. But when Pierre stepped out, it was over. It was done. I mean, this guy, fuck. We have penetrated the Trudeau government. Like, how much more do you have to say or even think beyond that? Does he know what he's doing? He doesn't fucking care. Is he in charge? Yep, that's good enough for him. Now, I will fully admit I am not the most motivated person on the planet. But would I compromise my morals, my integrity, my ethics to what he's doing? Fucking no. Never. It drives me crazy that he is as easy, or shall we say as clumsy as he is stupid, to go into Empire Strikes Back. And he is politically incredibly clumsy. Watching the way that Poilievre has been all over him in Ottawa, if it isn't him, it's going to be Freeland. If it isn't Freeland, it's going to be Gilbeau, or whoever else that's stepping up. Oh, and that's the other thing as well, too. Like, Canadian Parliament has degenerated into nothing but your elementary school with having 2, 3, or 4 sides taking up arms against each other.
Well, I mean, the Speaker of the House, Fergus, tried to play the race card on the Ottawa convoy, on the convoy protest. He literally spoke up. He actually tried to play the white supremacy card on the convoy protest. And again, I have to go back to topic number 2. If the convoy protest was being organized by white supremacists, then why did they put a gay Jew in charge? Continue.
If it was organized by white supremacists, why were there enough Sikh truck drivers that were involved? No one talks about that shit. Shocker on that one. Surprised but not surprised. So, if anybody is going to be happy to if you're going to be happy being told what to do, then you know what? You lined up for the job. You might as well line up for the government to tell you that it's over. Just like fucking Logan's Run. Because I don't remember much about that movie, but I remember that much about it is that it came down to you go in, you've had your run of luck, you've had your fun, you're reaching that point where you're being too old, and it's time to take you out. Don't get me wrong. I realize that it might seem a bit of a stretch here on my part, but I don't see it being any different. I really, honestly don't. And my feeling right now is that, as it's been said, that I've listened to alternative voices or whatever else, and Kelso has posted this stuff online as well too, within his channel, is that people have to start to see what's going on, and you have to realize that society as you know it, we're at the end. And what's going to happen next is all going to depend on how many people, on the number of people that are going to wake up, and the number of people that are going to be able to stand up on their, on their own 2 feet to make it actually work and for it to happen. I could be wrong. I don't think I am, but I could be wrong. So, and within the alternative media, the truther community, whatever you want to call it, and I believe this to be true, is that a lot of people have to see what's going on now because they have to accept the rumor, speculation, whatever you want to call it, is that people have to see what's going to happen 10, 20, 30 plus years down the road, and they're pushing that shit out now. If that's the case, and Polyev, or whatever you want to call him, Pierre, not Trudeau, is the only voice of reason as to what your options in society are, well, then guess what, folks? You've got to start to make a choice. If you want to go back and line up to compromise your the meat suit that you're living in, and to possibly, likely, I don't know, move on to the next life more faster, or much more quickly, sure, go ahead, do it. Just as I've said with my spouse. It is what it is. Or you hopefully start to wake up and see the patterns and to recognize what actually is going on. And to me, this medical assisted suicide by the government is an attempt to usher people into the afterlife. So there's less people, less useless grass eaters. They're taking up oxygen and water and food and whatever else, and to push them out the door. Can't say I don't disagree to some degree, but not completely. No, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm right. I don't know. So that's up to you, folks. That's entirely up to you. And I honestly don't have any more to say about this one. I'm done. Just absolutely fucking done. That's it, man. That is absolutely it. I'm tapped out.
Okay, so that concludes this episode for tonight. I would like to say, hopefully the Canadian government doesn't keep doing. I mean, this level of stupidity I won't say it leaves me gobsmacked. I mean, because like I said, I've said this a few times and I want to say it again, right? If I ever reach the point where I'm like, yeah, I don't really care. What's the big deal? Blah, 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 blah. Then, I mean, that's going to be time for me to go and do something else. But, you know, we're only into the start of the year, and we've already had 2 Canada specials because the stupidity level has just ramped up to the point where if we tried to include the Canada content into the Red Pill Nation content, the show would last 4 or 5 hours, and I'm just not going to do that. Neither is Rearson. If I have to start doing 2 shows a week because Trudeau just keeps being stupid, then that's the way it is. But I mean, even the regular stuff. For instance, we got 7 topics for 361. Just so you know. And I mean, I could have added more if I had wanted to, but I didn't. So that is it for tonight, though. 360 is going to be the interview with Vladimir Putin, and the Tucker Carlson Vladimir Putin interview was a little bit dull and dry at points, but I mean, I will get into some because there was some very interesting stuff that went down during that interview, and I think Rearson would agree with me. But we are done for tonight. Oh yes, I have to let everyone know they're being recorded. Yes, that's right. We were recorded tonight. Just thought I'd let you know, Rearson. But that is
you're fucking telling me now? Fuck
Yep.
you. Fuck you. Okay, anyway.
Just go grab your 5-pound vat of Orange Man Bad Hand Balm. Just go in and relieve yourself. You'll feel better. Don't forget that. Oh my God.
No
Okay.
standards, folks. No fucking standards. And we don't care. And we honestly don't.
And we don't. So that is it for tonight. Okay, Rearson, stick around. I have to have some other interesting news to tell you.
Okay.
But that is it for tonight. Stick around.